Live. So please, if you can hear me from home, write down in the Discord or in the Telegram that you can hear my audio so I can start. As soon as we receive some feedback, we are ready to go. The first student responding will get 100 sadhnas. They will not.
There is a delay, so I think
yeah.
Giacomo just reminded during the lecture because instead of the movie, you have
yeah. Okay. I will go just from here to the whiteboard and nothing else.
Yeah, I can space by moving maybe the table.
Yeah. Perfect. Like this. Any feedback?
No feedback from me yet. We are experiencing.
So you can see it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome to the first lecture of the Plan B program. 2 days ago there was the introductory lecture. This is only for people that enrolled in the program. So either here again in beautiful El Zonte or at home from your platform. Maybe there are some groups watching the lecture together. So the Plan B program is a program for people that want to enter the Bitcoin ecosystem, becoming Bitcoin company employees, or Bitcoin entrepreneurs, or Bitcoin-oriented professionals, or just working at McDonald's because the price is very, very low, but eventually we'll recover in 3 years, so maybe there is still chances. So let's move to the actual beginning of the course. As Rox explained 2 days ago, there will be a part of foundations, which will be common for both tracks, the business track and the software development track. And I will be in charge of this foundation. Today is the first of 4 lectures about the foundation of Bitcoin. And in particular, today, we try to explain why Bitcoin. As I anticipated in the introductory lecture, the logical sequence of these lectures will be why Bitcoin. We will do some some excursions into some very early technology, including shells. So not really cutting-edge technology, but still technology nonetheless. And we will see that the money went more and more virtual from physical assets. So it started with physical objects that you could trade just moving them from one hand to the other. Then it moved to an object that encodes some information, which is a coin that we will explain together. Then in a few minutes. Then we move to something which is just information on a paper, like a banknote. Then information without even having a paper anymore. So digital credit on top of some computers. Then in the next lectures, next week, we will see that Bitcoin is an attempt to de-virtualize money and making it back into a bearer instrument and something that actually contains some scarce value, and then back to the idea of something totally decentralized that doesn't need any kind of third party. And then the third lecture that I called Where Bitcoin, we will try to understand why the Bitcoin that Satoshi presented in 2008 in the white paper and 2009 in code is not the end of the game, but it's just the beginning of the evolution of Bitcoin, which you may end up being an important part of if you end up developing or selling or marketing or testing or documenting or educating on some of the Bitcoin tools and infrastructures. So let's focus on this part today. Why Bitcoin? As anticipated, this will not be an archaeology lecture. This will be very, very high level. I will give you at the end of the lecture a few references to actually study the real story of money, including the ancient story with archaeological references and the modern story with the exact details of the fiat evolution or devolution. This is a very high-level lecture that I split into 4 parts, which I named as the main functions of money. You know that there is a historical tradition dating back from Aristotle to give money 3 main functions. So store of value, how you use money to store some economic energy for the future. Then there is medium of exchange, how you use money to solve the problem of the double coincidence of wants problem. So I have this and I want that, but you don't want what I have, you want what another person have. So I have to give my things to somebody else and then take the things that he will give to me to you so that you give me the things I want. This is very complex to say, and it's also complex to fix, and that's the function of a medium of exchange. And then there is unit of account. So when you have to price goods and services, you cannot price goods and services into all the other possible goods and services. Imagine you enter a restaurant, and in the menu, there are like 30 items of food, and each item of food is priced in the relative exchange rate to any other possible food in any other restaurant of the world. Any menu will basically be as large as an encyclopedia, and that's just food, because you can price everything in any kind of service. So in order to try to simplify economic calculus, we use money as a unit of account. The last part of this lecture is called system of control. That's a nice idea by Andreas Antonopoulos, which was, you can still check out some of his videos. He was a very important early educator in Bitcoin. Now he's not as active anymore, but he's still there. And he published a video, I think a few years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago, in which he argues that money actually served 4 and not 3 functions over history. Store of value, medium of exchange, unit of account, but also system of control. And he argues that the last function of money, with the recent evolution of fiat money, anti-money laundering laws, know your customer rules, or even just FATCA compliance, OFAC compliance, all the things coming out of the first Nixon change in the freedom of transaction settings in the 70s, and also everything which changes after 9/11 and the Patriot Act, and even more after COVID. So the idea that money is being used as a tool to control society. Of course, there is a negative undertone in this analysis. I don't think money as a system of control is good, but you have to understand that for many of the main actors of this devolution, this is actually a feature, not a bug. So money can be used to fix crime before it happens, like a pre-crime in Philip Dick. Money can be used to change society, to move incentives around, to make people more virtuous, or something like that. We will try to make the case that this is not a great idea and that something could go wrong in trying to steer society using money as a tool for control. Each part will be around 30 minutes, so this should be a 2-hour lecture. That said, I don't have a good track record into staying in 2 hours, depending on the amount of the tours that I take. If I get nerve sniped by myself into some topic, or depending on the number of questions here in the audience or online, we may go as long as 3 hours maximum. At noon, people are authorized to shoot me down with tranquilizers guns. So we are sure to end the stream at noon, probably before. Probably not much later than 11 something. Feel free to ask questions during the presentation, but each time after a section, I will stop a little bit to let you digest and to collect some feedback and some questions. I know that some of you may be very new with everything we are going to discuss. If that's the case, don't be shy, ask questions, write down the question. Even if you feel they're stupid, I will just tell you they're stupid, and then I will also answer. If this is not new to you, I still hope this is not going to be boring, because even if, for example, if you are a Bitcoin educator, and this is what you read every day and teach every day, my hope is that you can find some value into the way I try to package and structure the arguments that you hear every day in every podcast. Bitcoiners do listen to at least 4 hours of Bitcoin podcast every day, so they are familiar with these topics, but maybe this is a new disposition of the concept that can be useful. So let's start from, another thing. This sequence of topics, store of value, medium of exchange, unit of account, system of control, also loosely follows the historical evolution of the function of money. Not only money has all of those functions today, but those functions kind of developed in a sequence, in the sense that people used store of value that were exchangeable, but not medium of exchange. I will now point to the difference for a while, especially in the form of collectibles. Then people moved to actual synthetic medium of exchange, so things created just for the purpose of exchanging, like coins. Then unit of account was basically the age of the gold standard, and then system of control is the main feature of the current financial and monetary system. So this is a chronological sequence to some degree. Of course, don't really believe me, don't trust verify, in the sense that I try to keep it simple and logical in a sequence, but history is complicated. Everything went a little bit up and down and back and forward, a lot of loops, a lot of false paths. So history is more complicated than this. Let's try to start with store of value. Here you can see different ways to store value, like a thermic cup to store some cold or hot food so that the hotness or the coldness are maintained, a safe to prevent other people from taking your gold, or a recorded saving information. That's a very nerd addition, but I will try to argue some connection between value and information. The three sub-chapters of these first 20 minutes are Crusoe economy, collectibles, and some focus on the concept of scarcity. What is Crusoe economic? You know, I hope the pronunciation is French like Crusoe. I never really checked if it's Crusoe. Robinson Crusoe. Crusoe? Okay. So it's an English book about this Englishman with a French-sounding surname that gets stuck in an island alone, just like Tom Hanks, and he's forced to basically do whatever he can. And he's alone, at least for a good part of the book, before he meets Friday. Being alone, he has to make a lot of decisions that are not social, but are very simple. They are basically decisions of what to do with the things he has, with the means in front of him to reach the goals. And many economists, especially lately Bitcoin economists, they liked, well, but actually it's a tradition way before Bitcoin. It's a very good example to try to teach economics from first principle with few complications. Of course, life is more complicated than a man on an island, but the man on an island is a very simple, clean example where you can start building up a few concepts. So we will use that example with in a few minutes just to try to clarify a few economic concepts. Then I will give you reference to actually study more in depth if you want, if you are interested. But the idea is that even just an overview is useful to understand why money emerged on the first case. So on your, I hope you can see it. It's not very big, but probably you can see it. So on your left, you see a situation where Robinson is stuck with immediate consumption. So basically, he goes every morning, he wakes up in his tropical island, well, not is, but he's stuck there, and he goes into the sea, and with his bare hands, he catch 10 small exemplars of fish, and he will just bring them home after 12 hours in trying to catch them. He put him in a jar made by something, I don't know. Then he goes in the cave and he eats them. Every day, he catches 10 and he eats 10. So the blue one is what he extracted from nature, changing the position and the shape in order to be able to consume it. And the violet one is the ones that he will basically consume. He will basically destroy in order to extract some value, which is food, energy, survival. You can see that at the beginning, the life is not bad. On Monday, he will get 10 and eat 10. On Tuesday, get 10 and eat 10. On Wednesday, there is a problem because there is a huge bank of fish coming into the bay. So with the same effort, he can get 15. But the problem is that he's not that hungry. So 5 fish will just be thrown away because the fish is not easy to save for the next day. So it will just be thrown them away. Then on Thursday, you have a problem because there is like a tropical storm or something. He cannot access the beach. So he will just get 5 fish. And since there are other 5 missing for his calorie intake need, he will starve and die. Of course, maybe not in one day, but if this gets repeated a lot, he will starve and die. He will become weaker. Being weaker, he cannot enter the water anymore, and he will die. Compare this scheme with the other on the right, where Robinson invents a technology called saving, a new idea which radically changes all the incentives and the behavior. So he will get 10 fish and eat 10, 10 fish and eat 10. But then when there is surplus, when there is something more, he will not throw the rest away. He will find a way to conserve it for the next day. Now, with fish, that's not trivial because fish is not very durable, notoriously. So you need to use to get them dry under the sun, or to add salt, or to discover ice, or refrigerator, or something. So, or you just put them you just dig a pond with salty water, and you bring the fish to the pond next to the cave. So there are ways to conserve. So now Robinson will catch 15, eat 10, but now there are 5 which are stored. This is the yellow part. And now on Thursday, when there is a tropical storm and he can only get 5 fish instead of 10, he can access the storage. This is way more resilient as a structure because now you are not wasting when you have more, and you are not dying when there is less. So his life is made a little bit more interesting by this invention, which is saving. Of course, saving requires technology, like I said, in order to put the fish in the pond and stuff like that. Note that it's not necessary that that Robinson actually is very lucky on Wednesday. Maybe instead of being lucky, he just decides to sacrifice more of his effort. So instead of staying in the water to fish for 10 hours, he stays for 15. So he wakes up earlier in the dark, and he stays there until it's dark trying to catch some fish, so he gets some more. So he's making a sacrifice. There are a few concepts that are explained in this simple slide that are important in economics. One is diminishing return, the idea that the utility of some object is not linear. What that means that if you are very, very hungry, one fish is basically life-saving. If you are okay, one fish is good to have. If you are already full, one fish maybe you don't even want it. You just eat it because you want to be polite, assuming there is somebody else on the island. If you're really, really stuffed, one fish is nauseating to you, and if you eat enough amount of fish, you can basically get your guts to explode, and you can die. So there is, in that case, is a negative utility. The other concept is a concept of positive sum. So from the left to the right, we made a change introducing saving, and this change is not neutral. It's not that doing this stuff, the amount of fish, so the amount of fish in the ecosystem was the same, literally the same. But with this move, eliminating the waste and consuming the storage, Robinson can actually extract more value than before. So the sum of the units of value, you will see that we don't really measure the units of value, but the sum is positive. We will get into this concept more. And let me stress the last concept of this slide, the concept of time preference. We will go through this concept a lot. A few days ago here in El Salvador, there was a Plan B forum, and you can probably check on the live stream the presentation by Saifeddin Ammous about time preference and other things. And it's a very popular concept among Bitcoiners. What is time preference? Well, it's the amount of preference you put on yourself now compared to yourself in the future. Typically, we have a saying in Italy like, is it better to have an egg now or a chicken tomorrow? Maybe it's translatable in some other languages. And well, there is the history of the ant and the grasshopper. Like the ant is enjoying life. She's consuming everything that she can find and singing, and she's a hippie, she's like Joe Nakamoto. She just stay there singing and playing. You're very low time preference, and she doesn't store anything. The ant seemed like a loser because the ant is not singing and not dancing, just working all summer and storing. Then the winter comes, and the nature is now barren, frozen. Now the grasshopper, even if he had a lot of fun, is dying, is starving and freezing, and the ant, with all the accumulated wealth, can actually survive. And in the original story, the one not for kids from Aesop and others, actually the ant will say, no, you cannot enter, stay there and die. In the modern kid version, maybe there is some kind of reconciliation at the end. This is time preference. The grasshopper we say that he has a high time preference. So he privileges the present over the future a lot. So that's I. And the ant has a low time preference. So it doesn't discount a lot. It doesn't privileges too much the present over the future. Now, everybody has a positive time preference. Time preference can never be zero. Well, or not in any case of any rational person. If you tell them you can have something you like, you can get it before or later, except for some very, very weird sadomasochistic games, people will prefer to have something good before than later. Now, the question is how much before you want it. And this is the time preference. If it's high, you want it now, and you don't care about the future. If it's low, you actually care about the future, you plan, you save, and you basically, you think about yourself in the future more. I would say 80%, 90% of the human culture, like cautionary tales, they are about time preference. Because it's the only case in which we need the cultural mean to transmit you something. Kids don't need parents to tell them chocolate is good now. They know. They need parents to tell them, it may feel good now, but if you ate 3 tons of it, you may not feel very well tomorrow. So it's all about time preference, actually, lowering time preference. Now, there is another slide before we move to the actual collectibles. This other slide is about another step in evolution. On the left, you see again saving. So Robinson will just keep some fish alive and then eat it. On the right, you find innovation. So Robinson will actually understand that now that he can save, he can do something smart. Instead of spending 10 hours in the sea to catch 10 fish, he can actually use the accumulated storage of wealth, of value, and he can save a few hours of work, not for fishing, but for building a fishing rod. So now, after he succeeded building a fishing rod, the catch of fish becomes not 10, but it becomes 15 in a stable way. So now he can save more. So now he can use access the storage and use part of the saving to build a very large fishing net attached to a boat. So now the fishing can go up to 20 and so on and so forth. And then from the fishing rod to the boat with the net, with a manual things, it can move to something with a boat with a steam engine, with a very large net, and then at the end, a atomic-powered submarine with laser beams that can directly fry fish. And that's the end of the evolution. So this is called innovation. You cannot have innovation without saving, because you see the game, like, first you save, then you access what you saved, not to face an emergency, but to actually free some time for you to actually innovate. And that can fail. In one of the pictures, you can see that the last time Robinson tried to build a boat, but he failed. So now the amount of saving is wasted. So that's what an entrepreneur does. He takes some saving, he invests the saving into innovation. If it goes well, now you will have more, it will extract more resources with the same effort. If it goes badly, he wasted some of the savings, and now you have to go back again to save. The key is to lower time preference so that you consume less than you produce. If you consume more than you produce, you are in debt. We will introduce the concept of that a little bit later. So another slide, which is not very, well, just a couple of things. First of all, innovation, usually, well, but this is basically, these are details, but innovation has to do mostly with 2 things. One is information, which is not a scarce resource. You know, information can be reproduced, but it's part of the innovation, because once Robinson managed to build a fishing rod, even if the fishing rod as an object gets destroyed, Robinson now will not need the same amount of time to rebuild another fishing rod, because he already acquired information about how to do it. Like a food recipe or an open source software, they are immaterial things, they are information patterns that are result of innovation work, and that can reproduce the innovation without re-going through the same intellectual or practical effort. So information is one part of of innovation. The other part is energy harvesting. So at the beginning, Robinson is using chemical energy on his cells, muscular cells, ATP. Basically, he's burning glucose to make these muscles move so he can catch fish. This is a process that uses energy. But then when he moves to, for example, he moves to do some agriculture with a bull. I don't know if there is a bull on the island, but let's assume some similar animal. He will use another energy process, which is still chemical, give food to the bull, and the bull will move, but it's more efficient because the bull has a muscular and a skeletal structure that will be more efficient into moving stuff than a man. Less flexible, but more efficient. So moving from that, it will start to use coal and wood to burn, and then it will maybe make water evaporate, moving an engine that will actually move a boat faster, and that's a steam engine, or then a train, and then it will access the power of burning oil, which is a very, very dense storage of energy, and then it will move maybe to breaking very heavy uranium atoms, which frees up a lot of energy. Ultimately, we will discuss it, but I'm going a little bit philosophical and I have to stop because I'm already late. But basically, ultimately, all the forms of energy come from the sun, or some sun. So from gravity, basically. Gravity condenses matter. Matter starts to basically have fusion. Fusion creates heat and light. Light gets to the plants on the earth. The plants store it into basically they transform CO2. Well, this is getting complicated. Anyway, let's move to the next one. Sharing. Now you can compare. Oh, okay. Now you can compare other two situations. On the left, you have instead of the days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, you do have people: Alice, Bob, Carol, and Dan. And you can see that you have a similar situation of the immediate consumption when you have solitary consumption. Let's say that Alice is good at fishing, 10 fish, and she eats 10. Bob the same. Carol is very, very good. Every day on average, Carol gets 15 fish, but she cannot eat them more. She can store them for the future, but since returns are diminishing, she arrives to a point where even the storage is useless, because when you have 3 tons of fish on your pond, you can never eat them in your life. So it's wasted again. And then Dan is very bad at fishing. So he will never catch 10 every day, and he will starve and die. Now, on the next slide, you have sharing. You have the situation in which Carol, which is catching more, is giving the extra amount to Dan so that Dan can survive. Now, you may think this is like utopian. Nobody really helps anybody. You may be cynical, but this is actually the way that every family works, at least for a few years, because little kids, they tend to be very, very bad at providing wealth for the family. For example, I have 2 kids, one is 7, one is 3. They don't bring much money home. I'm very disappointed. So I need to take my extra, me and my wife, we have to take the extra amount of wealth and give it to them for free. Now, of course, we have expectations for the future, but for now, it's for free. Moving from these, we have specialization. So what if, instead of everybody fishing and moving around fish, people can become more efficient also using innovation in some specific task? So maybe you can have something on the right, which is Alice being very good at fishing, Bob being quite good at hunting boars, and Carol in basically building up shelves or like huts or anything, and then will excavate wells for water and stuff like that. So you can have again a situation of division of labor, which is a positive sum game. The people on the right are better off than the people on the left. This is very important. This division of labor didn't leave everybody the same. People are exchanging, but since everybody's focusing on a specific task and getting better at that, you will have a global increase in productivity and in consumption as well. So that's something good. In this case, in the previous case, the economy increased by waiting more time. The more time passes, the more Robinson will innovate, and by the use of energy and making plans for the future. In this case, the economy grows with numbers. The more people you have, the more you can do division of labor, the more you can save in efficiency, and you also increase in diversity. Now, with diversity, I don't mean the new diversity trend that if you have people of different colors, they produce more, but diversity in skills, diversity in ambitions, diversity in risk aversion, diversity in priorities, diversity in passions, and other things like that. Now, finally, we get to collectibles. If you want to store value, storing value is not trivial because you need to know what you will need in the future. And becoming proficient in storing every kind of things is hard. You see the reality TV shows when people store everything in their house and they bury themselves alive in the house. It's not easy to store everything for every occasion in the future. You have to be smart and focus your storage ability into something. And then again, you can exchange to do division of labor, but it's not trivial to exchange everything with everything because you need all the particular combination, and sometimes Bob doesn't want what Carol has to offer and vice versa. So basically, the many societies over the world specialized in storing and trading, especially a specific class of goods, which we call collectibles. So they are goods that, unlike fish, they don't get consumed immediately. They also don't go bad if you leave them on. You can leave them for years and they will maintain the same characteristic. When you use them, you don't consume them, unlike fish. So think about a shell necklace. Shell necklace. Unlike fish, it doesn't go bad. You leave the shell necklace on a shelf for 10 years, it's still there. Unlike fish, you don't eat it. So you can take it, use it as a nice necklace, then you give it to somebody else, and it's still a nice necklace for them. And so it's durable. It is scarce, and this is a point that we will go into stress a little bit more in the next slide. Scarce means that, well, intuitively, we will discuss this a little bit more, but intuitively, you know that scarcity is part of value. If you have a game of collectible cards, if you have a Pokemon card or a Yu-Gi-Oh card or whatever you want, which is rare, that will be high demand because there are few of them. Everybody wants to, there's more demand than offer, basically. If it's very common, things that are common, they are not valuable because people will just think about that. I tell you, there are two Node Nation shirts, and one is limited edition, and there are just 3 of them in the entire economy. And there are millions of them, they are printed every day. Which one do you pick if you have to pick one? You probably pick the first, even if you don't like the color, because it's rare and you want to store for the future. So, and then the other 2 characteristics is he has to be fungible. So, for example, a Picasso painting is very rare because Picasso is dead. So until technology improves by cloning Picasso and something like that, we will talk about the stock to flow, but basically the rarity of a Picasso painting is very, very high. And it's durable. If you keep it well, it can be durable. The problem is that you cannot go around and just trade by saying, I give you one Picasso painting, you give me the other Picasso painting. Because they're all different, they have different value, they cannot be divided, they cannot be easily summed together, because maybe my Picasso painting is worth 3 of yours, so now I will have to cut it in 3, but then the value is not 1/3 of the original, because when you cut a Picasso painting, unless you're a modern artist, and then cutting Picasso maybe increase the value, but that's another discussion, which is more fiat. And the last part is privacy, the idea that, for example, in some books, even the books that I will give you as a reference at the end of the lecture, you can see that there are some forms of money that are very public. For example, race stones. There are these islands in which these giant stones are a form of money, and everybody can see them, and you just say, this is mine, this is his, and then give me this service, I just give you the ownership of that stone. And the stone is there. The problem is that this doesn't scale. First of all, because they have to know each other, they have to be a trusted community, otherwise people will say, this stone is mine, and the other will say, I don't know you. Yeah, but just believe me, bro. So it's not really something scalable. But also there is a problem of privacy that we'll stress more at the end of the lecture. if you store your value for the future, other people may want to take your value from you. There are two kinds of economic games. One is positive sum games in which we trade. I want something, I have something, you want something, you have something, we exchange, and now we are both better off than we were before. Not the same, we are both better. So this is a positive sum game. And the other is a negative or a, let's say a zero sum game is you have something, I want it, I punch you, and I take you. This is a negative sum game, not even zero, because now you had some value, now you don't. I didn't have the value, now I do, so there is a transfer, not a multiplication, plus your face hurts, so that's a negative. So this is a negative sum of game. Stealing, murdering, raping, torturing, kidnapping, and defrauding, they are zero or negative sum games. While exchanging freely and contracting and negotiating and deciding together in a voluntaristic base, they are all positive sum game. Consider that a voluntary exchange could not happen if the two parts were not sure to be better off. They would just say no because it's voluntary. So voluntary trades are always positive sum by definition. You may have some kind of caveats, like maybe some game is positive sum now because we both think we are better off, but in the future, some of us will regret it. This is usually trading. Trading can be considered sometimes, not always, like financial trading, a zero-sum game. I think this asset, I think Bitcoin will go up, and I think fiat will go down. You think the opposite. So we exchange, and I'm better off because I'm following my prediction. You are better off because you're following your prediction. But one of our prediction will be good, and the other will be bad. So one of us will regret it. So that's a zero-sum game. Stealing, punching and stealing, is a very, very strongly negative sum game. Why? Because after a while, if I keep punching you and stealing your food, you will start basically creating, I don't know, building an armor for yourself. So you will have to invest money and wealth and technology into building your armor, and I will have to build a technology to basically pierce your armor, and then you will have to basically nuke me back with something. And this is an escalation, a race of arms, which is all economic value that gets wasted into taking each other's stuff instead of building new stuff and producing new stuff. So in general, that's also why it's not just an arbitrary thing that many ethical systems in the world came out with the idea that it's not nice to murder, steal, rape, kidnap, and stuff like that. A collectible, in order to be scalable, unlike the race stones, should be resistant to this kind of zero or negative sum actions. So it should be easy to some degree to hide them, to protect them. A real estate is not a great case of collectible because it's very easy for somebody to see it. While collectibles, usually your grandma's wealth can be usually stored in a box somewhere in a hidden position. Now, let's dive in a little bit more in the concept of scarcity. Usually, one of the common ways to explain scarcity is the water-diamond paradox. So water is important for your life, very important. If you don't have water, you die. Diamonds, I mean, if you're a girl, they are more important for your life, but still you can survive. Many girls may not believe it, but you can survive without. So it's not that important. Yet, if you take the same amount, the same weight, the same mass, the same volume of water and diamond will be way more valuable than water in any kind of economics. Why is that? Well, we already explained why previously with the concept of scarcity. The fact that water is very, very common, at least in typical setups, and diamonds are not. But you can tweak around the premises and see that this really works. If you are in the Sahara Desert and you are dying because you don't have water, and you are in the middle of the desert, and I come there with a glass of water or a glass of diamonds, and you have to pick, I'm sure you will pick the water, so you can survive, because there is no water around. If you are in the Great Lakes region of the US or Canada, and there's water, and you have waterfalls and stuff, and I give you a glass of water, you just throw it away and just take the diamond. But if you are an imaginary world made of diamonds, I come with the diamonds and you say, okay, thank you. I mean, there are some on the grounds as well. So it's all about scarcity. Scarcity is a concept that can be a little bit tricky to define. So you have to think a little bit hard before you talk about scarcity in a naive way. For example, you may see that I am assuming that the drop of water and the diamond, they have barely the same, they are basically more or less the same size. But the scarcity of something really depends on the unit of measure. If you ask how much water is there here, and in the world, in our planet, how much water, and I tell you around 7 oceans. How many diamonds? Well, millions of diamonds. Just 7 versus millions. So it depends on the unit of measure, right? So usually you can say what is more scarce at the same density, at the same weight, at the same volume. But actually the real way to go for economists is calculating something called stock to flow. What is stock to flow? Stock to flow is the idea that you take how much of a good is introduced in the economy in a unit of time over how much of the, the opposite. You take how much of the good is circulating the economy over how much of the good is introduced in the economy in the unit of time. Stock to flow, so it's the stock of the content over the flow of the content in the economy, is a measure of time actually, because I will use this. Yes. So if you do stock is amount over flow is amount versus time. This is time. This is not very complex math. So it's a unit of time. Usually stock to flow measures something that we can call trivially and colloquially scarcity, but the better definition will be inelasticity of supply with respect with demand. So I make you some examples. You remember during the early COVID madness, Americans were fighting in supermarkets to get toilet paper. It was a very big deal. There was a lot of demand for toilet paper. So toilet paper was scarce because there were few rolls of toilet papers and many, many angry Americans fighting for that. So you may imagine that the value of toilet paper went up a lot during COVID madness. It didn't. Why? Because the producers of toilet paper, they understood there was a shortage, they just produced more. So toilet paper is not scarce because even if there is more demand than supply, supply will immediately, easily adjust to match the demand. This is something that is very common with economical resources, and it's very uncommon to have the opposite. Now, gold, on the other hand, has a higher stock to flow because the supply is very inelastic. Let's imagine that the price of gold goes up twice, which can actually happen, and making Peter Schiff happy. So the price of gold goes twice. Now, the demand of gold is now twice, because that's what it means for with the same supply, the demand goes twice, the price is twice. And so there is more demand, and people will want more gold. So gold producers, they will decide to duplicate the production. So they will go to their gold mine and they will put twice the effort in the gold mine. So first problem, if you put twice the effort in a gold mine, you don't extract twice the gold. That doesn't work that way. Sometimes the gold mine is depleted, and even if you put more and more effort, it's not linear anyway. Plus, the amount of gold which is produced which is introduced in the economy every year is around 1, 2, 3 historically, around, let's say, around 2% of the total stock, which means that every year, on average, it changes historically a little bit. On average, every year, let's say you have 1% of gold introduced. That means that if you have 100 units on this year, you will have 101 unit less the next year. So what happens if the producer can double the production of gold? Well, instead of being 101, next year there will be 102. But if the price is double, moving from 101 to 102 is not like moving from 100 to 200. You cannot double the stock. You just double the flow. But the flow is very low compared to the stock. So that means the gold has a supply which is inelastic with respect with the demand. That's scarcity. Scarcity is not when there are few things, because it depends how you measure the things. Scarcity is when, even if people want more thing, the production of the thing cannot be increased to match the new demand. That's the economic definition of scarcity. Now, these guys that you can see here, they are some exponent like Menger, von Mises, von Hayek, which is a Nobel laureate, Seyfedian, which is our Bitcoin version of Austrian economist. They are part of what is loosely called the Austrian School of Economics. I will give you at the end of the lecture some references to actually get a little bit more into that. It's called Austrian because most of these guys, at least the first three, plus a few others, they were born and they were operating in what was back then part of the Austria-Hungary Empire. None of them was actually born in current Austria, but it was the Austrian Empire. And their enemies, people defending the mainstream economic school, they were called the German School of Economics, and they were referring to the Austrian as the bad guys. Like these new Austrian, they are stupid. Like Austrian was a disparaging. It was basically a slur. You are just Austrian. It's like maximalist. It was something created as an insult that was reappropriated by this guy as something positive. This happened very commonly in history. This is called reappropriation of a slur, like Tory, Whig, queer. There are a lot of things that start as an insult and gets reappropriated, like maximalist or Austrian. Another important thing is, before we move to the next session, I'm just 10 minutes late. I was thinking worse. No, 20. So another thing is the concept of Cantillon effect. Now, if a collectible is scarce, it can be used as a very primal form of money because it has all these characteristics. But what happens if the scarcity changes because the production technology changes? In using innovation, this is something I can tell you about. I can tell you about a Robinson story, but it's something that happened for real. So, for example, there is an island where shells are used as money because shells, they have all these characteristics. This is very common. So common that there is a type of shells which is called moneta in Latin because it's really used mostly as money. So what happens if I arrive to this island where the scarcity of these kind of things is very typical? For example, if you want to extract these, you will find 50 shells every 10 minutes on average on the shores. That's a very typical amount of flow, just 50 every 10 minutes. Now, what happens if I create a boat that can go very, very far away and a very special net that can extract these shells from very, very distant islands where the production is more? It means that now my rate of extraction, it becomes way more than the average one. I come to the economy still consider these very, very rare, but actually for me, the scarcity has went down because with technology I can improve. So what that means is that I get a lot of purchasing power. I can just, I basically can just send a tsunami of shells in the economy. I become super rich and people will give me goods and services in a cheap way, and I will basically become the king of the land because I have a superior production of these collectibles. This is something that happens in many ways. For example, shells are easy to produce. Fake shells can be produced with porcelain or with glass. Another example of collectible are colored glass beans that comes from meteors, basically. So they're very rare. There is a very scarce number of them. The stock to flow is very, very high, and people will use them as money in different parts of the world. Now you have people from the Venetian Republic. They know how to do glass very, very sophisticated, and then the Portuguese and then the other will learn from them. And now they can recreate colored glass beans without looking for an asteroid crater. They can just make them. So what happens is that they arrive to the island and they trade super cheap and not scarce at all artificial beans with real goods and economics and they just take everything over. So this is some kind of monetary colonialism, so to say. This is a reflection on what is called in economics the Cantillon effect from the French economist Cantillon. The idea is that if an economy uses some foreign money as a store of value, if you introduce more of it, you can extract wealth from the economy. Think about, for example, let's think about that in dollars. You have a dollar printer, secret perfect dollar printer printing efectivos cash in your basement, and it works very, very well, and it does perfect banknotes. So what happens is that you will print $1 billion for yourself every day. Now you are richer. You go out with $1 billion, you buy great, very, very nice gifts for your family and friends, and you buy your villa in Zonte, and then your helicopter, and then your submarine, and then you hire people to help you. You do whatever you want. You are richer. The problem is that if you have a job, maybe you still want to do something, like you are a painter, you still do painting, but the price for your work goes up a lot, because now to convince you to do something you don't want to do is very, very hard, because you have all that money. So your prices are going very, very up. Now, people around you, your friends, family, your favorite bakery, your favorite pupusa place, they will become richer, because now you can spend a lot. So they will become richer. But the problem is that they will also increase their price, which is something that you have seen happening in the zone as well. More money coming in, price goes up. So more money coming in the economy, price goes up. Still, the people that are close to this new money inflow, they're still better off, because now they have more money. They have to pay more because everything costs more, but they receive way more, they make more business. So they are happy. The problem is that the more you go away from the money printer, the more the price increase is the same, but the new amount of business decreases, because you are far away from the center of the wealth. And there is a point, so this is plus, you are super rich, you are a billionaire, you are very happy, and there is a point where there is a zero. So these guys, which are far away from the money printer, these guys, they do make more business now, they receive more money, but the price went up just the same level to compensate. So their life is the same as before. Everybody, after this line, everybody, it's on net minus. So they are not receiving more business in a way that can compensate for the fact that price increases more. This is typical, this is basically what happens with counterfeited beans. So the Venetians arrive with their glass, colored glass, and for them, they are the bean printer, so they become super rich. The people that find them on the beach immediately, they still become quite rich, because they receive a lot of beans, and the disposition of the price sensitivity of the Venetian is very, very low. They don't care. They have infinite beans, so they just pay whatever, maximum price, and everybody on the beach is happy. Then on the jungle, a little bit far away, everybody will be a little bit less happy, because the prices of everything in terms of beans is going up. So this is a common thread that we will see towards all the lecture today. Now, Austrian economics, well, even if Cantillon was not an Austrian economist, the idea is that all the things that we mentioned now, which is time preference, positive sum gains in economic exchange, scarcity, stock to flow, inflation, Cantillon effect, they are some of the basic tenets of the Austrian School of Economics. Now, today, even the mainstream economics is called neoclassical mainstream. They also take all of this into account, even if maybe they don't put a lot of emphasis on these concepts. But you have to understand that before Menger, for example, most of these things were not even understood, with some exception, like in Salamanca School, but another exception. But basically, the Austrians introduced this concept in the mainstream economic discourse. And even for Bitcoin, there is a very important component of Austrian discussion. So let's stop for a second before moving on medium of exchange. Any question on what we just said? All good? From home? Nothing? Yeah.
What's your favorite form of historical money?
That's a good question. Yeah, what's my favorite form of historical money? Well, I think it's always fun for me. So there are many, for example, many modern terms come from ancient forms of money. When you take a salary, this comes from the fact that salt, sale, was used as money for a time for Roman soldiers. Salt has a reasonably high stock to flow because in order to extract salt, you need the salines. So, of course, technology now can make it very cheap, but to that time it was reasonable, and it's very durable. You can take it for a lot. It's divisible. You can easily divide it. So salt was used as money in an efficient way. So you have salary. But another term is pecunia. When you say pecuniary fine, pecunia not wallet. Pecunia means sheep, because for many people, cattle and sheep was money. And I find that very funny because I don't know, I never seen it in real life. And the idea that people will come to do shopping with sheep and leave some sheep to the owner is I don't know, is clumsy. And I find it funny. I would like to see an economic exchange happening in real life. So I guess sheep. Now, medium of exchange. The idea that, so we already discussed store of value, and store of value was exchanged. So we already introduced the concept of exchange. I have some beans, I have some shells, I give you the shells, give me the pupusa. That's an exchange. But the point of medium of exchange is not to be exchanged, but is to be used mostly just as exchange, is to be either created or modified or used by the economy explicitly for that. So we're moving from collectibles that can be exchanged to something that is basically only or mostly used for exchange purposes, a medium of exchange. Think about, this is an important distinction. Think about a real estate. Real estate is a store of value. Real estate is not a medium of exchange. That doesn't mean that you don't exchange it. You will buy the house, you will maybe speculate on the price, and then you will sell it. So the house is being exchanged because it comes to you. But you don't exchange the house in exchange for any other non-monetary goods. You don't send the house in exchange for food or services. You send the house in exchange for money. Then you keep the money, and then you use the money to get the food. So the house itself is not being used as a medium of exchange among different goods and services. It is itself a tradable good and service. So, when collectibles started to become used as a medium of exchange, but they were also used as collectibles. This is a necklace. It was traded, but it was also a necklace. There were other kinds of very popular money like ivory axes. They were exchanged as money, but they were also axes. People started to understand that some things can be designed or improved or modified explicitly just for their function of medium of exchange. Introducing coins. Coins in, I said before that this shell is called moneta. The term moneta comes from Latin again. Juno moneta means the goddess Juno, which is the one who alerts or the one who caution you about something, monere. And the idea that the reason the moneta is called like that is that in a temple next to Rome, there was a temple of Juno, which is the same as the Greek goddess Hera. And Juno or Hera, she's the wife of Zeus or Jupiter. And she is the goddess of the family and the wealth and gold as well. And a lot of people were bringing to this priest offers in gold plates, gold cups, gold necklace, gold rings. And these priests, they wanted to live off the offers, so they find themselves with a lot of gold, and now they have to get out of the temple, go to the market, and give a piece of gold in order to get food or other kinds of, or clothes or other kind of services. So these priests started to do something clever. Instead of going around with gold cups or gold necklace or gold rings, they started to melt, they basically started to fuse the gold and then pour the gold into very, very similar shapes and amounts and weights. And so they just did 1 gram of gold, 1 gram of gold, or 3 grams of gold, and they just created basically reliably similar pieces of the same amount of gold. So now when they go around in the economy, they don't have to trade this cup for that ring, for that food. They just bring around clear units of gold. This was useful for the priest, but actually started to get very useful for everybody else as well, because now the food seller that received these, they understand that this amount of gold, which is so nicely printed with the face of the goddess Juno on top, and with the number on the background, on the back, which is the number of the amount of weight of gold inside. This is super practical. Why? Well, first of all, it's easier to divide, because a gold cup can be a little bit different. It's more fungible, because a gold ring value depends on the shape of the ring, on the labor that has been done, on the artistic value or the sentimental value. An amount of gold is just an amount of gold. It's 3 grams of gold. It's always the same. I give you 3 grams of gold, you give me 3 grams of gold. It doesn't matter the shape, the artistic choices. It's almost the same. It's very fungible. It's very uniform. And then there is also the fact that it's easier to verify if you trust the priest. In particular, if I give you a gold cup, you have to, in order to evaluate it, you have to actually weight it like Archimedes. When Archimedes said Eureka, he was basically trying to understand how to tell how much gold was in a specific crown. You have to, now you can use an electric scale, or you can use an hydrostatic scale like Archimedes. But if I give you a gold cup, the value depends on how much gold is inside the gold cup. Now, if you trust the monks, the priests of Juno, and that's a big if, you don't need to measure, because they've written down for you how much money is there. And it's very hard, it's very easy for you to recognize the face of Juno, and it's very hard for a counterfeiter to replicate the face of Juno, because they need to buy basically they need to buy tools, and it's very hard to replicate correctly the face. It's possible, but hard. So this is the idea of coin. The coin is a weight of precious metal, usually. Now, why metals? There are many elements. Even if Juno was particularly fond of gold, the history of coins was replicated elsewhere, and the first case is the Lydian lion in Lydia, which, by the way, could be connected with the legend of King Midas, the one that touched everything and made it into gold. This may come from the same land where there was the first king issuing coins made of gold, the Lydian lion. Anyway, but also you can find shells used as money, and in China, at a certain point you will see shells made of bronze, so bronze shells. So they replicate the shells, but they do that in metal. Now, when I told you that these priests received offers and then decided to melt them into specific weights, they could have received offer of any kind: gold, silver, diamonds, rubies, emeralds, anything which is shiny or rare or precious. Why gold? Well, gold is very easy, like other elements in the periodic table. There's basically copper, silver, and gold. They are solid at room temperature, at least almost solid. Copper and silver tends to be a little bit more soft, and they are very easy to turn into shapes. They are very easy to extract from ores in a poor way. So they're easy to modify in this way. Other elements like diamonds, you cannot do this. You cannot take a diamond and then you just break it into specific amounts, because the diamond is not fungible, it's not uniform. The value of a diamond depends on the purity, on the imperfection. Gold is just gold. It's an element, it's a metal, and these three metals are super easy to be malleable, to be turned into this. So most of the coins of the world has been done with these three metals. Gold is the metal with the highest stock to flow. So gold is the metal that is more scarce among these three. Silver is in between. Is not very easy to have pure, because silver in a pure element state will become softer. So if you touch a silver coin which is very, very pure, it will deform. So in order to make it non-deformable, you need an alloy with some other metals, which will make it, for example, go bad, go dark over time. Copper is even worse. Indeed, nobody uses pure copper, usually use bronze or something like that. This already remains in the Olympic, for example. You have the gold metal, the silver metal, and the bronze metal. These are basically the three metals that are more used as coins. Now, so we say that the priests in this temple, or the king of Lydia, or the Chinese coiners, they run a business called the mint, because now they receive metal, they smolter it, they melt it, they change it, they stamp it with. Sometimes it was not really melting, but it was just putting the metal there and crush it with a hammer with a symbol on top. So they have a lot of metals and they turn it. This requires work. If you want to melt metal, you need heat, you need a lot of wood or coal to heat up the oven. So you need energy, you need labor. Why do you do that? You need to be paid. So one way to be paid is trivial and is a fee, like a coining fee. You go to the mint and you tell them, I have this cup of gold. This is 100 grams. My numbers are totally random. 100 grams. Take it and give me back 100 pieces of 1 gram each. This is pretty simple. And then the mint will say, yes, sir, but this is my time and my service. So you give me 100 gram cup, I will give you back 99 pieces of 1 gram each, because I take 1 gram for my service. That's a normal way to run a mint. But then some minters became smarter, and they invented something called seigniorage. And basically they basically made a deal like this. Okay, you gave, actually, the very first case of seigniorage may have been just a scam like this. I come to you, I tell you that I give you a cup of 100 grams, and you give me back 99 pieces of 1 gram each. You do that, but instead of 99 pieces of 1 gram each, you give me back 99 pieces of 0.9 gram each, and you keep the rest, and you put some kind of cheap alloy in. I will get the coin. That looks like gold. I trust you. You are the minter. I don't have the instruments to check right now. I just go away. This is a scam, but it's not a scam that can be done only to the requester, to the client. It's a scam that can be done to the rest of the economy. So let's imagine that I'm smarter, and I go to the mint and I say, I give you 100. You give me the in exchange, but I will check. So don't try to fool me. And then the minter will say, let's make a deal. You give me 100. I give you 100 pieces with 1 gram written on each. It's just that we know that is 0.99. So I keep the fee, but the fee is invisible. And I say, okay, I mean, better for me. I don't even have to spend, I'm basically moving the cost to somebody else. I come, I get the service of minting, I'm not even charged to the service. And so I will just take these 100 pieces. So instead of 99 pieces of 1 gram each, I get 100 pieces of 0.99 gram each, but the sign on top is 1 gram. So we are scamming somebody else. I will spend it in the economy. Somebody else will put it on a scale and will say, oh, this is not real gold. I've been robbed of something. But then maybe it will just shut up, because it's better just to try to scam the other one. And it will circulate in the economy. After a while, this will also produce a Cantillon effect, of course. And this actually happened, and it became very, very important. And with coins, so with collectibles, you had some examples of Cantillon effect. You have cases like we say that the Venetian with the glass and the beans, the Spanish in America with the beans and stuff like that. So it did happen. But with coins, you get a lot of incredible examples of corruption of money, of inflation, of Cantillon effect, and of debasement. So inflation, first of all, inflation means inflating the money supply. It means that you print more money, you coin more money, or you create more shells. So that's inflation. Today, inflation has been misused as a term. So on the television, you will see inflation is when prices go up. And if prices don't go up, there's no inflation. But that's not true. Inflation is when the money supply is increased. That will make price go up if something else is not making price go down, which could be a deflation crisis, or it could be technological improvement. So you know that with technological improvement, a cell phone the same cell phone will cost less and less every year. So the more you wait to buy the same cell phone, the cheaper it will become. If I print more money, the cell phone costs the same, but it's still inflation because there is more money now, so the price of the phone is not going down. It's staying the same because of inflation. Then they started to cheat even more, and they started to say that inflation is when the prices are increasing more than 2%. And if they are just increasing 2% every year, that's not inflation. If they are increasing 1%, that's deflation. But okay, so the term is a little bit abused. This on the slide is a silver coin, the denarius, in the Roman Empire. So you can see on the left there is basically a silver coin which is very, very poor. On the vertical axis you have the silver content in percentage, and you have this kind of 97% coin which is very, very pure. With silver is never 100% because 100% silver is too soft, but is higher than 90, so it's pretty good. And then you get every emperor were issuing a new coin, and they were increasing seigniorage. So they were writing the same amount, but putting less and less silver. So they just can keep the remaining silver. And that's something that did happen until you get to this super crappy denarius, which is just 1% of silver after a few years during the Antonianus. This is bad. There are some people that even link the collapse of the Roman denarius to the collapse of the Roman civilization. Of course, everybody knows about the Roman Empire, the collapse, many reasons, the barbarians coming from German tribes, or Christianity disrupting the polytheistic cults, or many, many explanations. But many economists that are fond of monetary history, they connect the fall of the Roman civilization and empire to the debasement and the corruption of the Roman money. Now, that didn't just happen in Rome, it happened in many, many empires. Of course, the first people inventing coin were Chinese, and also there was an hyperinflation crisis there as well. So what is the thesis that link something as specific as inflation to something as broad as a collapse of a civilization? Well, the idea is that inflation is a problem in itself, because, of course, the first problem of inflation is Cantillon effect. You are moving resources from the economy to the money printer, which means that you remove incentives to produce an economic value to your fellow humans. Instead of being incentivized to do positive sum games of free exchange, you are now incentivized to run the seigniorage scam. So a lot of effort gets removed from the productive economy and put into the money printing. Everybody wants to become a money printer. And then if everybody wants to become a money printer, that also invites a lot of negative sum games of violence. So what happens that since everybody wants to become a money printer because everybody wants to be in the center here, the Roman Empire will just send their guards to kill everybody else who is trying to compete with them being a money printer. So you have monopoly on minting. At the beginning, minting was a free market process. I can be a mint, you can be a mint, that's the temple, that's a goldsmith, that's a blacksmith, that's a king, but mints can compete on the market. And if you have competition, the mints that will do less seigniorage will be more trusted than the mints that will do more seigniorage. But then a king or a Roman Empire can just say, okay, if you try to compete with me, you know, mafia style, I will just have to, something bad can happen to your shop. And that's the monopoly of minting. And monopoly of minting removes any breaks, because if you are competing, if you do that, the customer will just stop using your coin and use other people's coin. But if you are the monopolist, and if you throw in jail or worse everybody who is competing, you can debase forever, and that goes on and on and on. So you have monopolization of the service, Cantillon effect. Yeah.
Can you try it?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, test, test, test.
Okay, testing.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Do you have it? Okay. I get a couple of questions before I go back to the issues, the secondary issues of inflation. One question is, must seniorage be unethical? Can there be a version of, an ethical version of seniorage or money debasement more in general? As you already responded on the chat, that the real issue is that you can call it ethical if everybody who circulates a coin with something written on it, which is 1 gram, knows that is actually 0.99 gram. So in a situation in which that's known, you can call it ethical. The question would be, so it's not impossible in principle. The question would be, how is that actually happening, and what is the realistic business scenario in which that happens in an ethical ways? Usually, if you want to spread the cost of the thing in the entire economy, you can just take the 100 grams, create 100 coins, which 1 gram each, and then you can put an asterisk with a star with this is actually 0.99. So that could work. The problem is that at this point it's just better to write this is 0.99. So there's no reason to say this is 1 gram, but actually it's 0.99. And if it's actually 99, what you do have is the equivalent of 99 coin with 1 gram, which is just a better way to write the same thing. And then we are going back to the original business model. So the point is, who is paying for the differences value? If nobody is paying, somebody is paying. If the payer is the mint, then the mint is going out of business because they are doing a service for nothing. If the payer is the entire economy, then you still have a distribution of the payment which is based on the Cantillon effect. So it cannot be equally the entire economy. It will always be the last people far away from the mint to pay more. So how can you make it fair? Not impossible in practice. You can say that after a while, so the seniorage tended to be scammy in some ways, but after a while, once the new round of seniorage doesn't start, the economy will adjust. So the coin is printed with only 99% of gold. It spreads. People will start to reprice everything in terms of the new supply of money, so prices will go up, ceteris paribus, and then people will start to measure the coin and look, oh, this denarius is actually a little bit less, it's 99. Everybody will know. At this point, no additional transfer of wealth is happening. So there was a seniorage, and now it's fair. There was a transfer that was unfair at the beginning, and now it's fair. If it goes on to circulate, now it's basically fair because the economy adapted. So now what happens, that there would be the new introduction. And also the other fairness discussion could be, again, legal enforcement, legal tender, monopoly laws. So if you are not forced to use a coin, then I could still say, well, it's fair. It's on you to verify. You could just use a better coin. If you didn't verify, that's your fault. So it's ethical, like I create this coin, I say it's 1 gram, it's actually 0.99, but it's on you to verify. You could say that. I mean, it's a little bit of a stretch, but you could. The point is that in most real cases, as I said, there was a monopoly, so the political system was basically pushing out of business with violence competing mints on a specific territory, and on top of that there were also legal tender laws. So basically you are forced to accept this kind of coin at face value. So you cannot say, if you give me gold, 1 gram of gold, I give you this service. If you give me the 1 gram of gold coin by the emperor, I will give you 99% of this service. That's mostly illegal in many situations in which that happened. The emperor made it illegal for the citizen to discriminate, giving a discount to the coin with the lower amount of gold. So basically, there is a political force for you to, so either is a fraud, or is an enforcement, or it's just ineffective. So can you have an effective seniorage which is not enforced with violence and is not perpetrated with fraud? Yes, but it's a very weird social game that I don't see why it should happen. The second, so historical at scale, I mean. The second question is, why gold? Was it chosen by tradition, by convention? Actually, the answer is no. Money is conventional, but it's not arbitrarily conventional, in the sense that usually the choice of something as a monetary tool stems from the characteristic of the tool. We already discussed the shells. Many populations around all the world adopted shells without talking with each other, so it was not just a arbitrary convention. It was a convention that emerged after physical characteristic of the shell. Same with gold, silver, and copper. Gold, silver, and copper are elements that, if you look at them in a periodic table, they are just one under each other. You go on the periodic tables, you have the center, you have the metals, you go a little bit, you go to your right on the metals, and there is this column which is copper, silver, and gold. They are in the same column, which means they have similar characteristics. These characteristics are connected with the malleability, or how easy it is to turn them into coin. Can you have a platinum coin? Platinum is very rare, but can you have a mercury coin? Regardless of the stock to flow of the mercury is liquid, you cannot. Can you have an iron coin? Well, iron, even if can be used to make steel inside of swords, is not good for making coins for very specific reasons. So these three elements, they are the ones that are easier to turn into coins. So that's why all over the world they were turned into coin. Now, gold, of the three elements, is the one which is easier to keep pure, because it's the only one that can stay completely solid at room temperature and pressure with no alloy, and is also the one with the highest stock to flow, because the one where elasticity of supply is lower compared to the change in demand. So it's the scarcest of the three, and is also, like the other three, is used. So usually you may have occasional different things used as coin. We will talk later about paper, but mostly was these three metals, and gold was not conventionally the most valuable. It was the most valuable because it was the most scarce and the most pure. Purity is connected with scarcity, because if you were to do stock to flow, you have to measure how much gold there is in the economy. If gold cannot go bad, it cannot oxidate, unlike silver with alloys, it means that gold things will remain as shiny and as usable in the economy for years, while silver things will have to be treated back in order to be shiny and usable, for example, for aesthetical purposes. So there is a chemical reason that gold is gold. It's not that people just, there is this meme that money is just a shared delusion and it's just totally arbitrarily conventional. That's not true. Historically, different populations, without talking to each other, they came to the same conclusion about the use of the tools because of the characteristic of the metal. So gold didn't become gold by chance. Of course, you may have local differences. For example, there is this, I don't know if it's a myth, I'm not sure it's entirely confirmed, that some population that were living very close to very huge gold deposits, they didn't use gold as money because gold was too common and not scarce enough. So, like you remember, there is the myth of the Spanish people coming to close to the Amazonian, and gold there is used just like a common thing. So they actually exchange other things, and gold is just like a nuisance, because well, first of all, if a population is pre-coinage, gold is not necessarily more useful for money than shells. So yeah, gold, yeah, it's shiny, it's nice, but we don't know coins, so there is no reason to select the precious metals, so we use shells, and gold may be cheaper than shells with the same talking about the same amount and weight, for example. Or you can have occasionally people that live, let's say that there is El Dorado. In El Dorado, in the jungle, Amazon jungle, everything is gold. There's gold everywhere. There are like tons of open air gold mines, and you can just grab gold like this. Okay, the scarcity of gold, like there, is low, just like water in the Great Lake region, and so you cannot make gold an effective money because there is too much of it. But that's, I mean, we are not sure El Dorado existed. So let's move to, I was talking about secondary effects of inflation. Cantillon effect, which is redistribution. There are other forms of redistribution that happens during inflation. You may think, for example, that, so think about this. This is a question that many kids have. I did have this question as a kid. If we print money, why cannot we print money and make everybody rich? Well, the answer is inflation. If you print money and give everybody 1 million, they will all want to buy an helicopter. But now the helicopter builder also receive 1 million for free, so it will not work unless you give them much more money. So you're back from the start. But does that mean that money printing is neutral? So when you print, you produce more money, but the price goes up, so you are back at the same level. Not really. It's not neutral. It does something. One thing it does is cantillon. It takes money from far away from the money printer and it concentrates it close to the money printer, especially under monopoly, of course. Because if everybody has a money printer, then you have everybody hyperinflates and there is no cantillon. If the money printer is everywhere, then in theory money just collapses without anybody becoming richer. But usually inflation, heavy inflation happens under monopoly because competition will keep everybody under check of competition pressures, of course. So one thing is cantillon effect. The second is more money goes to the state. Why? Because in most of history, taxes are defined by law, and defined by law in terms of, for example, if you make, in modern economies you have usually this progressive taxation. If you make more than these, then you have to pay more taxes. But if more than these is measured in denarius, and the denarius is debased, now everybody is now richer in the tax law because it's easier to say that as a modern example. If you make more than $1 million, your tax goes to 40%. Now I inflate the economy. Now everybody makes, well, more people will make more than $1 million because $1 million is equivalent of much less wealth than it was before. That's called fiscal drag. But there are other effects. One is fixed income workers get depleted of wealth in favor of negotiators. So if you are a salesman and you just negotiate the price every day, you can follow inflation. If your raw materials get more costly, you will just increase the price. If you are a fixed wage worker, you have to renegotiate your contracts, which is usually hard and slow to do. So fixed income worker, during inflation, they lose money, and people that can freely negotiate, they increase money. People who export, they make money because now their currency is weaker, and so they will now export more. But people who import, they will lose money because now importing goods and services will be more expensive from external currencies. Another effect is people who are in debt will make money because I tell you, I owe you 100 denarius. Now 100 denarius are worth way less. So my debt to you in actual value diminished. People who lend money, so creditors lose money, debtors gain money. So inflation moves money all around, from everybody to the state, from importer to exporters, from everybody outside of the printer to everybody close to the printer, and from creditors to debitors, which also has another effect. The other effect is to, this is very much stressed by Saifedian and others, but it's also very important. Inflation reduces increases the time preference of a population. So think about Robinson. Robinson is consuming less than he extracts from nature. He keeps it there as a store, and then he will access it later to invest in innovation. Thank you. If the store of value is going to be depleted every time, you are not incentivized to store. Because if you consume now, you consume. If you leave it there, it just goes away. Think about the grasshopper and the ant. If the food collected by the ant was going to be go back to zero in 3 months. So the ant will just become the grasshopper. There is no point in working instead of singing and playing if all the corn beans that I'm putting aside, they will just be devalued, they will have no nutritional value after 3 months. The winter will come, I worked, but everything that I stored has disappeared. You were just singing and playing, and you are just the same as me. So let's just sing and play together. So you have this kind of effect in which if the amount of money that you store will decrease in value instead of maintaining the value, the population will stop saving and they will start spending. and we start to consume actually even more. Instead of not creating storage of wealth, store of value, I will even get into debt with other. Because if I get into debt, you give me 100, I owe you 100, I spend, I enjoy, and now I owe you something which is going down in actual value over time. So there is incentive for people to accumulate debt and to stop saving. But innovation, as we saw before, is driven by saving and investment. So when you have the population time preference increasing a lot, the population basically sees a civilization collapse. That's why if you look at Roman art and or like other cases, also in the Mycenaean Middle Ages, if you look at many cases of collapsing civilization, you find money debasement, and you find people that doesn't invest anymore, and they just consume and get into debt. It's funny that nowadays consumerism is connected with, on the popular belief, is connected with capitalism, like capitalistic consumerism. You spend a lot, you take something, you throw it away, you create a lot of pollution, and then you buy something else. That's consumering. That's capitalist, right? Actually, capitalism is the other way around. The idea of capitalism is, at least in the Austrian sense, this is capitalism, is save and invest. Is not get into debt and throw away. Capitalism, if you can have an idea of an evil capitalist, which is still a capitalist, it would be Scrooge of the Christmas Carol. Scrooge is not a consumerist at all. He's a capitalist, he's the evil one, because he's selfish, he's evil, but he's a capitalist at least. He saves for the future, even too much. But he doesn't spend. Consumerism is the opposite of capitalism. As usually consumerism is increased by debasement of money. There is another, there are many social effects. Other two that are very worth mentioning are shrinkflation and skimpflation, we were discussing the other day. So imagine that there is inflation. You are selling a pupusa, and inflation is now double, and you have to sell it at double the price. Your customer will become more resistant to spend double to get the pupusa. So you may lose some customer. You have to renegotiate, and it could be bad for your business. And there could be tension like this, the pupuseria next to you is increasing first or later. So think about instead, if the price is higher, you will just put the same price, but just serve smaller pupusas. For you, it works. It's still inflation, but for the client, it's less easy to see. This is called shrinkflation. The producers, instead of increasing prices, they will tend to use the same prices, reducing amounts. This works because people are more sensitive of pay. So if you go out of your house every day with $1 and then you cannot buy the pupusa anymore, this comes to your mind. If you go out every day and the pupusa is a little bit smaller every day, you don't notice. So many producers, during inflation, they don't increase prices. When they can, they reduce sizes. And you can see that right now, if you actually take even the advertising of McDonald's and you just compare the size is going down and the price is going up, of course. But it's smart because the measurement of inflation will only check price and it will not check size. So psychologically and microeconomically, it works better. The second form of hidden inflation is called skimpflation. So maybe the customer will notice that the pupusa is going down. So instead, I just put some kind of, I don't know, some kind of sand into the corn flour, just a little bit. So I take the same price, the same size, but the quality of the ingredients, they collapse down. And this is an even more effective form of inflation because the customer will not notice any shrink. Maybe they will notice the flavor deterioration, but you know, flavor is a little bit subjective. You don't remind exactly. If you do it very slow, very slow, very slow, people will not notice. Or maybe you just keep the flavor great, even you make it greater, but you just create long-term health effects. So you put something which is less healthy for long-term. That's great. The customer right now, they will just pay the same, eat the same amount. They feel okay. The taste is good. They will basically get diabetes in 20 years. But I mean, I have other problems. I have a business to run right now. So shrinkflation and skimpflation are two strong effects of inflation. And of course, when you have hyperinflation, which means that hyperinflation means that it's going so bad that people will basically increase price even more fast, and so the mint will debase even faster and faster to try to extract all the possible money that they can from the economy. That happened with paper money much more, but it also happened a little bit, well, hyperinflation is more a characteristic of paper money. We will see it in a while. But it can happen here as well. And so you can have hyper shrinkflation and hyper skimpflation all together. So basically, again, Cantillon effect, concentration of wealth, distortion, credit, debit, and import-export, they all change weight. Then you have increase of time preference. People stop saving, people stop investing, people just spend and go into debt. Now you have the decreasing of quantities, and you also have decreasing of quality. The last effect, which is very important, especially for things like real estate, is that if money is broken and you cannot provide another form of money because there is a monopoly, people will monetize other goods. So if money is broken, you cannot store your money, store your value in money, but you still want to store your value. So you will just buy houses. By buying houses, not to live into them, not to rent them, but just to save your value, you are increasing you're basically increasing the demand for real estate over the use value, because now there is a monetary value. You are monetizing real estate, which means that people that were able to afford the house before inflation, they cannot afford the house, not only because the price of the house has gone up, because even their wage has gone up for inflation, but the price of the house is also including all the monetary premium, because now people are forced to use real estate. The same thing goes with stock, like shares of innovative companies. If the money is debased, people will need to save their value somehow, so they start to invest in a stock exchange, in an innovation company, and so the price will go up for inflation effect, and not because the company is producing more, but just because there is concentrated inflation. If it's not by chance that if the United States government, the Fed, prints money, they use it to buy bonds, the value of bonds goes up, then they use it to bail out company in the stock exchange, so the stock exchange goes up, and you have companies that are not producing anything since decades, and the price is going up. Why? Because it's localized inflation. It still didn't reach out. What are the services that faced more inflation in the last 20 years? Education, healthcare, military, and well, that's mostly it. What are the main places where the US government spends the money they print? Exactly these three. So wherever the money goes, the price goes up first, and that's inflation again. So the idea of this page is to represent the fact that inflation is not just an economic thing. It can actually, it's not unrealistic that it could bring on the collapse of a civilization. And even that there is an artistic deterioration in Roman art is going bad. Why? For many reasons. One is time preference. People don't spend time accumulating skills for the future, because you cannot save for the future. You just want to be an ant, not a grasshopper. Second, because people start to use anything, including art, as a secondary form of money, even if it's not ideal because it's not fungible, but everything becomes money because money doesn't work anymore. This is of course, I'm talking about Roman Empire with a lot of references to the current situation, because we are also going through an important phase of debasement, which you will see it's even more effective than the senior age. Now, so this is one problem, the problem of corruption of money. But there is another problem. The problem is that, as I say, there are three metals that are very easy to turn into coins. Copper with some lead, like bronze. You mix it with tin and other metals and you get a stable one. Then silver with some alloy. You cannot have it very, very pure. And then gold. but you have 3 of them. Now, an economy doesn't tend to converge over 3 money. If possible, an economy will converge into 1. This you can see now is there are 2 laws that are called the Sarnoff's law and the McCarthy laws. That it says that basically in a centralized system, when there is one single central point, the number of edges, so the number of connections, grows linearly with the number of vertex, of nodes. So if you have basically that star there, if you have 8 nodes, you have 8 lines. V vertex equal n. The edges are the same as the nodes. But if you want to connect all the nodes together, the number of connections grows with the square of the number of the nodes. Think about, you have a triangles, so 3 people, you have 3 people exchanging 3 lines. 4 people exchanging, not 4 lines, because you have the diagonals, so you have 6 lines. 5 people exchanging, you have, it's the pentacle within the pentagon, you have 10 lines. 6 people, 15 lines. And if you go on and on, 14 people is 91 lines. Which means that in economy, if you have, why did we converge over very few amounts of money? Because otherwise we have barter, and barter cannot scale for this reason. As I said before about with the example of the restaurant menu, if every good and service has to be priced into every other goods and services, the number of prices will explode. We cannot have price index anymore. The number of liquidity requirements will explode. Everybody should basically be able to accept every service in exchange for every service, which is not what you need. So we invent the money as a convergence. What is the most efficient economy? The most efficient economy is the one where every good and service gets exchanged with one single good, not service because services are not durable. So one single good is exchanged for everything else. That's the most efficient. With that, you can have the maximum reduction of the double coincidence of wants problem, and you can have a growing economy. So economies, they tend to minimize the different types of money into possibly one. If you have not one, but 3, so if instead of one, so if you have one form of money, and you have 1 million of participants in the economy, you will have 1 million markets. If you have 2 forms of money, you will have 2 millions. If you have 3 forms of money, you will have 3 millions, plus all the connection between. So having one form of money is more efficient because barter, which is infinite forms of money, is maximally inefficient. But in the history of coinage, people could not converge over one single money. Why? Because the 3 coinable metals, they are in trade-off about 2 characteristics: portability or density of value and divisibility. Basically, gold is very precious, very dense in value. 1 gram of gold has a very high economic value relatively to the others. That means that if you want to move the wealth of a rich family in the Middle Ages with gold, you just need 1 box of gold and you can move the entire wealth. So you have this family that owns basically land, castles. They sell everything. They get 1 box of gold, maybe like this, 1 box of gold. They move to the new world and they start their life again. Gold is very dense. Gold is very compact in value. It's very portable. But the problem is that gold is not divisible. You have 1 gold coin. You go to buy food at the restaurant. Well, they cannot take it. They will have to give you back 99% of the coin and just keep a small. If you want to buy a coffee with gold, you will have to basically give them gold powder, and they would be able to collect gold powder and to basically reassemble gold powder. That's not efficient because you are giving up the advantage of coinage. You cannot have gold coin which is so small that you can buy coffee. That would be a dust part of gold. Bronze, or copper and the leagues of copper, has the other way around. They are very, very divisible. The economic value of copper all over and his alloys all over the world is such that usually the minimum amount of economic good and service that makes sense to price tends to be equal to a few coins of copper alloys. So you buy a coffee, 2 copper alloys coins. You buy, I don't know, one whatever microtransaction, copper. But copper is very hard to move around. It's not portable. If you have a wealthy family and they have to move around, they have to sell the land and the castles, and they have to migrate to the new world, they will have to basically create 800 ships full of copper just to move the wealth. So copper is great for divisibility, but very bad for portability. Gold is very, very good for portability, and by the way also defensibility, because if you want to hide your gold like a pirate, it's super easy to hide gold. If you have to hide copper, you need to dig a lot of ditches, of trenches in order to hide all that copper. Silver is in between, and it's not by coincidence that even if gold was always the most precious metals because of the highest stock to flow, silver was the most common because it was a little bit in between. It's not great for coffee, it's not great for moving a wealth family, but it's kind of okay for most of the other things. So it's very frequent in the history of coinage to see silver coin as the one that are circulating more. There are a few other things to say, like Gresham law and Thayer's law, but I'm running late and it's not so important for this specific lecture. Now, so you want convergence. So we move to the next topic, which is the one of unit of account, which is basically the convergence of everything into gold by using representative. Any question before I move to that? Yes?
You mentioned before that consumerism is essentially the opposite of capitalism. I was always under the assumption that something like communism or socialism would be the opposite of capitalism. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, yeah, the idea of capitalism, of course, capitalism, like Bitcoin maximalism and like Austrian economics, started as a pejorative, and then it was reappropriated by somebody, like I'm pro-capitalism. And in the positive version, in the negative version, it's all connected with Marx's labor theory of value plus the theory of exploitation. But in a positive sense, capitalism is the practice of lowering time preference, storing value, and investing value in progress and innovation. In this sense, this is the total opposite of consumerism. While it's not so politically speaking, communism is something that was invented to reduce the problems perceived of capitalism. But in actual economic activities in the Soviet Union, time preference was very, very high, because it was hard to store value, because if you store value, it gets confiscated from you. So people were really living with a high time preference, accumulating wealth at a very low rate, and spending a lot. And so, in a way, the society of the Soviet society was very consumerist in a way. People were spending immediately whatever they get, because when also they had a lot of inflation with the ruble. So capitalism as an economic practice is the opposite of consumerism. Now, let's move to unit of account. This is the evolution of a written contracts. When people started to write and they discover language, they also discover written contracts. So it's still an agreement. I do something for you, you do something for me. The difference is that now we write it and we sign it. A signature is something which is easy to recognize but hard to counterfeit. We will see digital signatures are even better. So we sign a contract, and now I don't have to trust you, because if you don't fulfill your part of the contract, I can call my friends and family and agents, and you can call yours, and we can compare chart, and everybody can agree that you signed this contract, so you owe me. So the contract is a way to basically turn the private agreement into a publicly enforceable agreement that other people can help me enforce if you try to basically break it. So the contract is something that started actually with even Sumerian written tablets. They have contracts on it. So contracts are very, very ancient. But then people started to think about something which is called a bearer contract, or a bearer financial instrument. So a contract that was not between two people, but which was between one entity and whoever had the contract in their hands. So it's a movable, transferable, bearer contract. This is an innovation that is very interesting because it can increase a lot the characteristic of money. Think about, for example, gold coins. I said that gold coins are very easy to transfer, but still, a box of coin is a box of coin. Maybe I'm a French lord in the Middle Ages. I had to go to Jerusalem to do my pilgrimage, and I sell all my things, and I get this box of gold, and I have to bring this box of gold with me through Italy, and then taking a boat to Jerusalem. And then in the desert there would be Muslim people attacking me and whatever. There is a lot of piracy. So the box of gold is still something bad. What if I can represent everything with just one piece of paper which will stand inside my Middle Ages panties? So I do something like this. I'm not sure they wear that, but you go to a castle of the Templar Knights. You give them the box of gold. They give you one piece of paper which written on, the Templar Knights, the order, owes you like 100 grams of gold. Sign it with a wax seal, which is easy to recognize but hard to replicate. And then you close it, you put it in the panties, and then you travel the world, and you can easily hide it from attacks. And it's very light. You don't have to do that with a box. You can just walk normally with paper. You get to Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, you go to the Templar Knights, and you show that, and they give you back the gold. And now you can spend the gold. This is very effective. This is so effective that after a while, in Jerusalem, you don't even go to redeem the gold. You have the piece of paper. You want to pay for a hostel, you just give the piece of paper to the hostel. Hey, if you really want it, go to the Templar Knights. This is good. And the hostel will keep it and use it just to give it to the provider of hostel services, because it's still as good as gold, because everybody trusts the Templar Knights. And this works very well. This has an interesting effect on convergence of precious metal, because after a while, if we have a piece of paper, we don't have a portability problem anymore. We can write on a piece of paper, we can write 1 gram, 1 ton, 1 million tons. It's still a piece of paper. It's very scalable. We can also write 1 gram of gold or 1 millionth of grams of gold. It's not like I'm not giving you a dust piece of gold. I'm giving you a nice to handle contract which is redeeming 1 dust of gold. And if you put 1 million of them together, that's a gram of gold. So you don't need divisibility anymore. You don't need portability anymore, because paper can represent very, very high amounts or very, very small amounts. So during this actually, again, this practice of banknotes, so notes from a bank, so this stuff here was a mint. This is called the mint, which is minting, while doing this is called the bank. Keep these terms in mind, because we will use them in the third lecture, where Bitcoin, because now we still use, also in the second lecture as well, we still have mints in Bitcoin and banks, but they are different kinds. So banks doing banknotes, so convertible bearer notes, they started in China again, and then there was a moment of explosion of these in Italian Renaissance, and high Middle Ages and Renaissance, Florence and all these city-states, and then it exploded everywhere, and it became very practical. So much so that when the banknotes became the dominant form of money, silver and bronze heavily demonetized against gold, and gold became the main representative. And that's not always true. For example, a dollar, a US dollar, for example, was a silver unit, even the sterling. So silver remained, bronze vastly disappeared, silver and gold remained the main, and with gold being the main value of reference for paper money, most around the world. Now, there is a version of banknote, so there is a hybrid here, which is a metal banknote. What does that mean? I'm giving you a coin which is made of a metal which is not precious at all. But if you give me back this coin, I will give you back some metal. So that's an hybrid situation, which is basically what we have now with the euro, or well, what we had before 1971 with the dollar. Now, just like in coinage, there is the practice of seigniorage as a business model. Also in banknotes, there is a new business model, which is called fractional reserve. So imagine that, let's say, imagine that you have a parking lot, and people are coming with a car and leaving you the car, and they pay you because you are custodying the car for them. Now imagine that your partner has a rental car service where you can rent the car and you get paid. Now, if you're smart, if you are just a normal businessman, people will come to you, they pay you, just keep me this car for 1 month, you, okay, pay me, I keep it for you. But if you're smart, maybe you keep the car for 1 month, but you rent it. So you are able to get the money from the rental and provide the very sweet interest rate, or even not only the custody fee can go very, very low if you do this. So you can overcompete other parking lots, because the other parking lots are charging the full custody fee. You are charging the custody fee minus the fact that you are renting the car away. This could be interesting. Of course, you can do that in 2 ways, just like seigniorage. One way is hidden, and one way is explicit. You can also tell the client. And this is fractional reserve. Banks started to, so the Templar Knights, well, the Templar Knights actually didn't do that. They were cool guys. But other bankers, they started to say, okay, people will bring me a lot of gold, but they never really ask back for all of it. They only ask back 1% or 10%. So why should I keep 100% of the gold in my box? That's a waste. I will just keep 30% just to be safe, and the rest I will use it to invest in businesses, basically to increase the economy. So you're not saving and investing. Other people are custodying to you, and you use that in order to invest. Because what could go wrong? Well, something can go wrong, which is called the bank run. There is a moment in which, for some reason, people go back to redeem more of the reserve you kept. So the banknotes usually is like the parking lot of my example. You are not negotiating, I will keep the car here for 1 month. I keep the car here as long as I want, and when I come back, you need to give me back the car. But I know that usually people don't come back for 3 days, and so you try to rent them out. But actually, sometimes people come back and they want the car. In the case of the car, it's even tricky because cars are not fungible. It's not like, I want my car, well, take another. But with gold is fungible. So it's very easy to do fractional reserve. If you come back, I just give you some gold of somebody else. But if I keep 30% reserves and 40% of the people come back to redeem the gold, I'm in trouble. This is called the bank run, because everybody understands that there is not enough gold, and everybody will go to the bank together. This is a picture of a bank run situation in the US, and there are also examples in movies and stuff like that. Even in Mary Poppins, there is a bank run situation. Give me my money, and they close down the bank. Of course, there are many other problems with fractional reserve banking. One problem is that often so you can do debasement, right? Fractional reserve banking can also do debasement, because if you don't need to keep all the reserves, so you can do fractional reserve banking in 2 ways. One, you get the gold, you give out certificates for the gold, and then you rent the gold outside. The second way is you just issue more certificates than the gold you have. So you get the gold, 100 grams, you give away 100 papers, and then you need to buy something, you just print another certificate to yourself. You print certificate to yourself out of thin air. That's the second way to do fractional reserve banking. It works, because if people never come to redeem the gold altogether, your new paper, as long as you don't exaggerate, is as good as gold, because people will just trust you. If you do that, you can create a Cantillon effect, so you can capture money from wealth from outside the economy into you, because you become a money printer. Now, what happens when there is a bank run? Usually, there are two things happen. One is called a bail-in, which means, sorry guys, we don't have the money, so now we only have 30% of the money, it's gone, you just get 30%. That's one thing. The second is a bailout. Sorry government, we are out of money, this is bad for the public, this is very bad optics. Please, go to extort money from somebody else that is safe to repay us because we didn't say we lost money. This is called a bailout. So the bailout is when the government goes to somebody else, steal the money and give it to the bank that is basically bankrupt. And the bail-in is when the bank will steal the money directly from the customer of the bank. No, sorry, I'm not giving you back. Both things happen very frequently in the history of paper money. There are many, many occasions that you can read about later. I will give you all the references. But basically, the point is that the bail-in is way more common. Bailout happens usually in very large crises, and bailouts also create some very bad incentives because, of course, like 2008, the financial crisis, there was a lot of bailout. Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, but all the other banks were saved. This created weird incentives because now, if you do fractional reserve, you basically have a gain. If you lose, the government will bail you out with other people's money. If you win, you keep the revenue. So it's a great deal. So after 2008, bankers increased the risk of fractional reserve. They didn't stop. They do it even more because they know that if they lose, other people will pay. And if they win, they win. So it's the best deal. And that's the bailout. The bail-in actually happened all during this paper money history. And basically, for example, many banks said, okay, this is a paper which converts to 1 gram of silver. Take it. Then, sorry, now it's just 90% of it. Let's say 60, let's do 50, let's do 30. So it's basically a form of debasement, just reducing the amount of money which are giving you back. It's nasty because unlike debasement, it can be selective, so it could be confiscation. So for example, you can say, you guys, you are of my same club, religion, clan, political party, I give you back. You guys, we are in war, you are evil, I don't give it back to you. Coin debasement is universal, you are debasing everything. While fractional reserve haircut or bail-in is something you can also target to some people that you don't like, which will also include some level of targeted financial censorship and stuff like that. So one other thing to say about this is the issue of centralization. In the US, banknotes enjoyed a very long period called the period of free banking. That means that every single bank in the US could print paper money. You give me the gold, I give you the paper. You give me back the paper, I give you back the gold. Everybody could do that. This reduced the fractional reserve incentive because if my paper is very not credible because I tend to exaggerate with the fractional reserve, you don't trust me, you go to the other bank. So there is a competition incentive that kicks on after a while. But still, the market is low to build this knowledge, so sometimes there will be bankruptcies and there will be bank runs. So when you have a bank run, you can do two things. Either you let it go, and so the market will become smarter and will price a risk on your fractional reserve, or you can just bail it out and centralize. So what happened is that after a few bank runs in the free banking era of the US, there was a law passed by the federal government that only the state, the local US state, so the former colony, they could also only have a central bank, and only the central bank could actually issue the notes, and all the private banks could just reissue the notes of the central banks. So there was a centralization of risk. So the banks are failing. When they fail, we bail them out and we centralize risk in nation-state bank. Then the Federal Reserve was created in the beginning of the 20th century, and it was decided that only the central bank could actually issue notes in exchange for gold and silver, and all the national bank could just reissue that same. So you centralize risk even more. Then, after the Second World War, with the Bretton Woods Agreement, it was decided that all the world, almost all the world, like except for Switzerland and a few others, almost all the world that participated to the World War, they were just using the Federal Reserve of the United States as a bank. So only the Fed can redeem with gold. So if you were in India in 1947, you go to a commercial bank in India, you give your gold certificate, the commercial bank cannot give you back gold. They give you back a paper of the central bank in India. You go to the central bank in India, you give the paper, they don't give you gold. They give you United States dollars. You go to the Fed, and now the Fed can give you the gold back. Of course, every time there was a problem, the Fed was bailing you in or haircutting you, which is the same. So sorry, the dollar is not really anymore 10 grams, I don't know how many grams, but it was not 10, it's just 9. Sorry, this year I just give you back 8. Well, actually 6. You know, there is a war, I have to do 5. Well, let's do 3. And then in 1971, Richard Nixon, decided that due to a speculative attack against the dollar, the conversion of dollars to gold was temporarily suspended. And still temporarily suspended since 1971. And of course, this is the current level of fiat money, which is centralized on a global stage. So again, free banking, state banks, federal banks, World Bank, basically the Fed becomes the bank of the entire world with Bretton Woods, and now the World Bank doesn't give you back anything. So Nixon confiscated the entire wealth of the world, practically. So I have gold for you all, you come back to me, I give you back the gold. Well, no, the gold is mine. Now, if you come back to me with a dollar, I give you back another dollar. Now, that doesn't mean the currency collapsed in 71. There is a very good website, is WTF happened in 1971. So what the fuck happened in 1971, WTF? And you can find that after Nixon move, of course, inflation increased, the average wage of the fixed income worker flattened, the productivity went skyrocketed compared to the wage. You have many bad situations, all the bad situations we described before. So this was a next level of hyperinflation. Of course, with paper money, it's easier. Every time it's easier to do hyperinflation. So this is a situation with paper money. And now there still remains a problem that in the same ages when you had, well, by the way, when I say confiscation, I don't just mean you give me gold, I give you a note, then you give me back the note, I refuse to give you back the gold. That's a confiscation, of course. There is another confiscation that happened during the 30s. Franklin Delano Roosevelt issued an executive order which said that the United States government was confiscating the gold from all the citizens. Why? Because competition, of course. If you have banknotes, and these banknotes are not credible anymore, people will start to go back using real gold, because real gold cannot be easily confiscated. So the government has to send cops to confiscate gold. First they confiscated gold certificates, and then they went after physical gold, because otherwise it's a competition for fiat money. Fiat means it's Latin, like fiat lux, that it be like. So it's money by decree. It's money whose supply is decided by the central bank, by politicians basically, and whose demand is enforced by legal tender laws. By the way, fiat money has not just domestic legal tender, but it also has international legal tenders, like the agreement of the petrodollar. What is the petrodollar? Since about the same, so when 71 happened, the purchasing power of the dollar started to go down, so the United States needed to keep it up, and so they made it illegal to do some things without the dollars. For example, you need dollars to pay taxes in the US, of course. You need dollars to, you cannot refuse dollars to cancel a debt. So if you have a debt and somebody comes to you with US dollar, you are you are forbidden from refuse that and ask gold instead. And you cannot sell oil if not for US dollars in many countries which are subject to this agreement. If they get out from the agreement, something bad like an invasion or some bombing can happen. So that's also a form of enforcement. Now, the problem is that about the same time that this stuff, I'm very, very late, I know, but I will try to make it fast for the last slides. At the same time that Nixon shock was happening, 1971, the new technologies of computers and telecommunications were exploding. So now, since about 100 years, you could send information across the sea with telegraph, and then with a telephone, you can talk with people over the wire. So speed of light was the limit to transfer information. And you had the computers able to store and elaborate information very fast and copy information very reliable. I will not, I had in my mind 20 minutes discussing computers, but I will not do that because I'm late. But the idea is that the era of computers and telecommunication made very, very cheap to duplicate information exactly, precisely. So bit by bit. Digital computers, they duplicate information without errors, unlike analog computers. So that's the real innovation. The problem is that information, which is always duplicable, always reproducible, was starting to travel at the speed of light in the 19th and especially in the 20th century. But money was still stuck here. Banknotes are very practical compared to coins. Coins are very practical compared to shells. But still, banknotes are paper. You have to bring them on a ship to the America, while with the telegraph or the telephone, you can easily transmit information at the speed of light. So we enter to the last chapter. The last chapter is system of control. I'm credited Andreas Antonopoulos with this video cover because I adopted the same name for the chapter. And it starts with the idea of credit cards. What are credit cards? Well, there is a good, in Plan B Forum El Salvador, sorry, it was Miami conference from the Bitcoin magazine Friends. And there was a great presentation by Jack Mallers about the history of credit cards. Watch it, it's very funny. And credit cards are rich people. They don't want to go around with cash because it's unpractical. They are just playing golf and it's annoying to have cash with you. So you just have a credit to your name. So your bank will, so the terminal of the shop will send the message to the bank. Is this person authorized to spend this credit? Yeah, no. Then they call the correspondent bank and they have all this circuit of credit. And the recent, of course, now you have Apple Pay, Google Pay, we have a fintech on top, Venmo, PayPal, and of course you have this image down there, the social credit in China. So credit means that not only it's to your name, but it's also connected to your behavior. If you behave very well, you will have more access to credit, otherwise you cannot buy some categories, for example, a high-speed train ticket. If your social credit is low in China, you cannot buy it. So this is the idea that in order to travel at the speed of light, money stops being a bearer instrument. It's not something that is just brought around with you and is exchangeable independent from your identity, but it becomes an information which is tied to your official public identity, which brings a lot whole of new problems. The main problem is exclusion. Exclusion can become political. For example, WikiLeaks starts to reveal war crimes from the US Army, and so there is a persecution of Julian Assange. He gets thrown in jail, etc., etc. But the first thing that gets done is MasterCard and Visa block donation to WikiLeaks. Now, with cash, you cannot do that. With cash, cash is anonymous. It's a bearer instrument. You go to the shop of Assange and you say, here, Assange, this is my donation. They cannot block me. They have to physically arrest me. Why? But if we are using credit instead of cash, with credit, you can just say that one specific donation recipient is not allowed anymore to receive your donation. So you don't even need to really arrest people donating. You can just suspend the things. Something similar happened recently with during COVID hysteria with the protest of the truckers in Canada. They were receiving donation to do the protest. Well, not anymore. The bank accounts just stop receiving the donation, and now you also confiscate the donation because it's just credit. So it's just on a central database. It's your name with an amount. I don't like you. Well, your name, no amount. This happens politically, but it also happens personally. In some regimes, you basically fight with the president, or your bank account is gone. or it can happen also as an economical form of exclusion. For example, now, in order to enter this paradigm, I need your name and identity connected to a ledger. Collecting this name and identity, and your real identity, is expensive. It's a procedure, you have to do KYC, you have to show your passport, you have to do a selfie. There is a cost to onboard you in this kind of ledger. This cost is high, like is a certain amount. If your business doesn't bring revenue to the financial system, which is higher than the cost to onboard you with KYC, you are out, and that's why a big percentage of the current humanity is cut out of this last stage of money. So most people in the world could use shells. Most people could just use silver coins and gold coins. Most of them could move to banknotes. If they work, they will be paid. But most of the people of the world could not access to this phase of money. And that's bad, because that means that these people cannot, for example, engage in e-commerce or in finance, which is global. So all the explosion of possible wealth created by the internet is not accessible by people that don't have an identity on the financial system. And if they do, the identity can be just taken back because they misbehave, they criticize the party, or they don't agree, or they don't inject some experimental drug or whatever the government will ask them to do. So this is another thing that focus on the problem of, we started with the very first chapter with the problem of scarcity. We end with the symmetrical problem of privacy. So privacy is a fundamental thing in commerce and money. This is like this is the image of two pirates, like ChatGPT generated randomly by me. Why? Because I think the pirates are a good example of the fact that privacy is a good characteristic of storing value. If you are a pirate, let's analyze this from a praxeological point of view, like looking at human action. If you have full knowledge of everything for everybody, the only things that matter is physical power. You have one pirate which is skinny and not very good with guns, and the other pirate is very big with a lot of guns and very good at them. The second pirate has very strong incentives to do a negative sum game and steal all the wealth from the first pirate. That will just happen. So the small pirate, the skinny pirate, will do something smart. He will hide the gold into a chest inside a treasure island. He will create a secret map with a lot of encoding and stuff. And now the big pirate doesn't know who is the rich pirate and where is the money, and he doesn't even know the face of the pirate. So he cannot hurt him easily. This was elaborated further by a group of people. So these people here, including Julian Assange that I mentioned before, the name was given by St. Jude, which is this lady here in the police mugshot, and then the three guys there were also in the cover of a very fancy US magazine. These are a group called the Cypher, and many more, not just these. You can find online the list of cypherpunks. Cypherpunks. You know the literary genre cyberpunks. Cyberpunk means like cyber is the cybernetic, the new information technology, cybernetics. Punk is the rebel against the society. So the cyberpunk is the rebel, which is rebelling against technology and technological control by government and corporation. So typical cyberpunk novels are The Neuromancer by Gibson, or even Matrix to some degree is a cyberpunk movie, and there's an entire genre about cyberpunk. There's also a video game, Cyberpunk. And cipher means encryption code. And so these people were a group of cryptographers, scholars, activists, researchers, computer scientists that decided that cryptography, which we will explain next week exactly what it is, was the main weapon to increase privacy on the internet. So they were cyberpunk heroes using ciphers, so cryptography, strong cryptographies, which was invented in the 70s, to fight against control and to fight for privacy. Their main point was privacy, and the main goal was to have a digital form of cash, something that could be as good as this, in terms of practicality, but also as good as these in terms of privacy of the user and impossibility to exclude or censor the user. So this is the cyberpunk movement, and together with the Austrian people that focus especially on scarcity of money, they focus on the privacy of money. And my thesis is that Bitcoin is somehow like a merging, a fusion of these two traditions. One is very recent, very new. These people are still, some of these people are still alive, and one which is very ancient and goes back to Menger. Now, a few resources to study. These are a few books that many Bitcoiners read. So the first one is the Bitcoin Standard. I will strongly advise you to read it, because not only is it a good book, but it's also super influential. It was a bestseller even among normies. So there are presidents of nations that read it, Nobel laureates, actors, movie stars, sport competitors, people that read this book. So it was a bestseller, so it was influential. It's actually, the Bitcoin Standard doesn't really talk about Bitcoin much. It talks about the history of money, some of the things we say today with a very deep treatment, and just the last part is about Bitcoin. Then there's a second book, the Fiat Standard. This actually comes from a joke of mine that I did in Riga, and Saifedean used that for a book, which is basically, instead of describing the history of money, so instead of describing Bitcoin as a new form of gold, let's describe fiat as a form of shitcoin. So let's describe fiat as a cryptocurrency with a specific type of consensus mechanism. And so the second book is also good. I'm not sure it does. Well, there is a chapter called Fiat Life, which I really invite you to read, because it is a detailation of the things I explained as a consequence of inflation. So that's very good. It also talks about fiat food. There's another book which is called Fiat Food, which is published by Saifedean, which is all about the food consequences of inflation and skimflation specifically. And then there is Principles of Economics. Now, if you want to learn Austrian school, you can just read Human Action by von Mises. But human action is important. Saifedean wrote this book, The Principles of Economics, which is basically describing everything that I described today and much more in a very systematic, scientific way. Very, I think, to a degree, easy to read. Of course, it takes time. Actually, Praxeology by one of my favorite Plan B program teacher, Knut Svanson, is an easier version, I would say, to Principles of Economics. And then I put this book for kids because I received some funny feedback. So this, The Bitcoin Money by the Bitcoin Rabbi is a book for kids, but it does explain scarcity and money. And I receive many secret feedback from people telling me, Giacomo, I tried to read the Bitcoin Standard, it was too complex for me, but then the book you suggested for my kids, actually I did understand that. So for some people, this is easier. For you now, you are Plan B program, you are elite, so you can skip, you can just buy Bitcoin Money for the kids and skip it. I would suggest you to read the Bitcoin Standard for sure, and maybe if you don't have much time, if you have time, go for Principles of Economics. Otherwise, Praxeology is very similar structure of the book, but it's a little bit shorter and probably easier to read. Then there is the book Cypherpunks by Julian Assange. Read it. Cypherpunks is basically a very good manifesto by Assange. There is this book that I love and hate because I think some chapters I'm very much against, but some chapters I think they are interesting, by Eric Voxwill, Crypto Economics. Then there is the Genesis book. Do read this book. Do buy the Genesis book by Aaron von Birdum. But wait, like you buy the book, you read the first chapters about the Austrian School of Economics and the cypherpunks, and then you stop, because the rest of the book will be for the lecture of next week, is about the prehistory of Bitcoin. Then there's this beautiful, so this lecture is entitled Why Bitcoin, and there is a book, Why Bitcoin by Tomer, is a beautiful book, visually speaking, a lot of Bitcoin art. So if you are very artistic and visually minded, a lot of concepts like time preference, scarcity are elaborated with very nice artwork and pictures. And I did like the book a lot. And also the title is the same. Then there are a few others. Check Your Financial Privilege by Alex Gladstein, which is the leader of the Human Rights Foundation. I like it because even it talks about fiat money, financial exclusion, inflation, the petrodollar. There is also an angle which, so I usually, when somebody asks me to learn about Bitcoin, it's a little bit right-wing leaning, I give them the Bitcoin Standard because it's a little bit more conservative vibe. While if they are a little bit left-wing, I give them this because it's more like, financial inclusion. It's more, the communication style is a little bit more appealing a little more to some, I would say, liberal sensitivity. But it's very important, and I will actually require you to read it because there is all the history of the petrodollar, which is very, very important. Now there is Broken Money by Lynn Alden, which is also good to, it's another perspective, same topics, but another perspective with a lot of good documentation. Yesterday we were talking about the big print, so I put it here as well. And then there is a book which is not about Bitcoin by Husman, which is The Ethics of the Money Production, which I really advise you to read. It shows you how printing money is the strongest temptation at scale in human history, probably. So even when we will discuss crypto and shitcoins, I will try to make a very strong case that the temptation to print money is one of the things that ruins industries and civilization. Now, you go on the Nakamoto Institute website. Nakamoto Institute website, you just look for it, run by great people like Michael Goldstein, and you will find a library with a lot of stuff. You can read it all, it's all good stuff. There are many Austrian economics texts by Menger and Mises. There are things by Rothbard about money that are very interesting. There are many, many things. There are three things in particular that I will suggest you to, that I will advise you to read because they clarify the lecture that we had today. One is the Crypto Anarchist Manifesto. Crypto Anarchist is an extreme version of cypherpunk. What does mean crypto anarchist? Anarchy is the idea, also anarchy is a pejorative that's been reappropriated. So it's the idea that initially anarchy means chaos, everybody's killing each other and cars are exploding. But actually the anarchy philosophy is we don't have rulers, we have a decentralization of power. And the idea of crypto anarchy is that in the physical world, the world outside of the computer, anarchy is a hard state to reach because there is an imbalance of power. The government will always have more power, so we cannot reach anarchy. But online on the internet, you can reach anarchy. Why? Because we can use encryption to speak and trade and discuss anonymously. That means that if people don't know where you live and who you are, they cannot physically hurt you. So if you exchange some ideas, the worst that can happen is that the others will exchange some ideas back. So ideas cannot hurt, they can hurt your feelings, but that's it. If you grow a little bit of thick skin about hurting words, then you're safe. People cannot hurt you through anonymous interaction on the internet. So if you can build an internet civilization where you can trade, build together, discuss, evolve, research, but you don't know the name and the face and the home of each other, you cannot hurt each other and you have anarchy. Then there is the Cypherpunk Manifesto. I already discussed cypherpunk. Then there is, this is the cover of the audiobook, but on the Nakamoto Institute you find the written version of the Shelling Out, which is a great treatise by Nick Szabo. Nick Szabo is a cypherpunk, but it is also, he also became a scholar of Austrian economics. And I think this essay is very nice. It talks about shells and wampum and everything. So if you are interested in the history of money, go for it. Last slide, on planb.academy, you go to courses and you can find the Bitcoin Journey, which is a Bitcoin 101 course that will also touch some of the points that I touched today. So do this course. It's super easy. This is for you will be few minutes, beginner friendly, but just do it. So you have that. Then there is hyperinflation case studies. These also do it. It's a very in-depth study of all the cases of hyperinflation over the world. So it's a very important course. Then you have Austrian School of Economics Fundamentals. Also do it, so you can understand better Austrian Schools of Economics beside the very quick impression I gave to you today. And then there is history of coinage. So you move from my super high level symbolic pseudo-history into a real history of coinage. So now, we did this. I want to stress again, and then I close, that this is a process of virtualization of money. Shells are physical objects, no information required. It's a shell, I see the shell. Coins, they are more virtual objects because I don't accept them for the gold content. I accept them because there is an information written on front which tells me how much is the Bitcoin content. I have to trust it. So coins are different, are more virtual. They are partially physical content, partially information about the physical content. So much so that they can become 1% silver. Then banknotes are just information on a physical support, which is a better instrument. So there is no gold in a paper anymore, no physical good anymore, just information, and this information will guarantee that you can redeem it for gold. So now you're just trusting some information, but at least you are holding in your hands a physical support for the information that doesn't depend on your identity. And the last movement, the credit, social credit, credit card, this is the last piece of virtualization, because now you don't even have in your hand a piece of paper that represents the information. The information is just connected to your name and to your identity in the cloud. So you can, so this is a total virtualization. What we will try to do tomorrow, next week, is explaining why Bitcoin is a process of de-virtualization of money. We go from credit and we try to turn it into digital cash, then to digital gold, and then to digital gold without a mint, which is basically the Bitcoin 2008. So we are going today. We went toward more convenience, but more virtualization. And the question is, can we keep the convenience? So can we keep a system which is as convenient to use as credit cards, or almost, but which also goes back to be as sovereign and decentralized as shells? Question mark. Spoiler. Yes. Thank you. Over. Free. Super late. If you have 1 or 2 questions, otherwise we'll respond to the next lecture. No question in the audience here? Do you find something relevant on the chat? Otherwise we respond next time.
Some people mentioned Joe Bryan, what is the
Well, yeah, what is probably the video? Yeah, very good.
Another question about what about money printing for greenfield investments? This
Oh.
was an earlier question.
Yeah, no time today to attack that. So, okay. Thank you. I will take some of the questions. If you have a question that if you're watching this in remote, in recorded, and you have a question, still write it down. So we collect the question and I will answer at the beginning of the second foundation lecture. Again, thank you very much and see you next week. Yeah, less than 3 hours, very.